gone in through the G5 system. Subject areas. Again, this is very narrow, it's very specific. English language acquisition, mathematics, science, foreign language, bilingual education, special ed, reading specialists, and other identified teacher shortage areas as of the time you begin teaching in that field. It's very important to understand at the time you begin teaching. So you may have all indication that you want to go back home and teach at your high school, and it may be perfectly on the list, so to speak, right now. But at the time you begin teaching, if it's not on the list, then you're not going to have the opportunity to meet the requirement. Does that make sense? Unless you're in one of these other fields. Other information about it. The amount of the Teach Grant is in combination with other student financial assistance, and it may not exceed the student's cost of attendance. We all talked about the budget, the cost of attendance, and all of that. You can't go over what you're awarding. You've got your formula, cost less EFC, less expected financial aid. This is part of that expected financial aid or anticipated aid. Teach Grant has to be. You cannot award if a student has been given, if your cost of attendance is $20,000 and the student has already been awarded $18,000, you cannot give them more Teach Grant over and above that $2,000 that's left. So just be aware that that is also in place for the Teach Grant. As I said before, it must be repaid as a direct unsubsidized loan with interest from the dates of the original disbursement if the student does not meet the obligations of the service agreement. And I call that defaulting on the service. You'll hear that term thrown around a lot. If they default on the service, if they don't do the service, that loan's going to go back to the first time it was dispersed and be an unsubsidized loan, which means the interest is going to what? Retroactively accrue is what's basically is going to happen. So it's a big deal. Students need to know what they're doing. Final regs for the Teach Grants. They must notify Teach Grant recipients of the right to cancel all or part of the Teach Grant no earlier than 30 days before and no later than 30 days after crediting the recipient's account. So you have to give them another opportunity to say, no, I don't want it. And there's specific time limits on that. You must return or cancel the Teach Grant if a cancellation request is received by the later of the first day of a payment period or 14 days after the date the student was notified of cancellation rights. My information to you would be, know that there are specific time frames attached if a student decides to cancel. I'd have to check back myself to make sure this is done, and you'd have to work very closely with your business offices and all of that with your accounts to make sure that you're processing all this information through G5 and the COD system to comply with what the requirements are with the days. If an institution does not return or cancel a Teach Grant, the student must be notified to contact the Department of Education to request a conversion to direct loan. So there's lots of things that go on with that as well to make sure that the student